Hello, welcome to Solving Watercolour. My name's Andy and today I'll be sharing some tips on how to paint a watercolour sunset. Here's a video I took recently of a beautiful sunset. I'm standing on Barassie Beach in Troon, Scotland, looking over the water to the Isle of Arran. Sunsets make a great subject for painting and they really lend themselves to the properties of watercolour, but they can be a bit tricky to control. So today I'm going to be looking at some ways in which we can control things a bit better and how we can create some really spectacular wet into wet effects. I'm going to start by wetting the whole sheet of watercolour paper. As usual, I'm using Arches 140-pound watercolour block, and I've taped off the edges just to give myself some clean borders at the end. The colours I'm using are by Winsor & Newton, and I've got cerulean blue, burnt sienna, and I've mixed a warm dark grey from Payne's Grey and dark Zazine Violet. I'm going to start by brushing in some cerulean blue at an angle with my calligraphy brush, and then I'm going to blend in some burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is great for skies as it dries to a yellowy orange colour but doesn't turn green when mixed with blue. It will make a dullish grey though, so don't brush them together too much, just let them blend naturally as much as possible, as you want to try and keep your colours as vibrant as possible. So I could start adding some dark grey now for the clouds, but the problem I'm going to have is that my paper's drying quite quickly and unevenly, and that's going to cause problems. I'm going to get hard edges where I don't want them and possibly unwanted blooms. So to minimise these unpredictable issues, I'm going to go in stages and dry everything completely. That will stabilise everything I've put down so far, and then I'm going to re-wet it. It's quite alright to do that, and as long as you're careful, you won't lift the actual paint that's already there. So that's my paper all wet again. I'm going to wait until the shine is just starting to go off the paper, just so the paper's wet but not so wet that the paint runs uncontrollably, and not so dry that I get hard edges. I need to work quite quickly, and I'm going to tilt the paper where necessary to make sure that the paint runs the right way. Okay, let's dry the painting now before we move on to painting the island. I want a nice crisp wash for the island, and I want it to be noticeably lighter than the foreground, so I'm going to thin my grey right down with water. I've switched to a flat brush to get clean sharp angles, and I'm going to paint a flat wash. So starting from the top and letting a bead of colour form, and then working into the bead and pulling it down. I'm working as quickly as I can because if that bead of colour dries up, I'm going to get streaks and lines instead of a nice even wash. So let's let that dry before moving on to the final stages. I want the foreground to be significantly darker than the island. This is what will reinforce the sense of depth, but the technique's exactly the same. I'm painting a flat wash again, and I want a nice even wash, so I've made sure I've got plenty of colour pre-mixed on my palette so I don't run out halfway through, because then I'd have to stop, mix up more, and in the meantime my wash is drying out. I'm going to leave some light directional shapes in the foreground just to lead the viewer's eye into the picture and break up that big block of dark colour. If you're finding this tutorial helpful, why not like this video and subscribe to the channel. My website, solvingwatercolour.com, is linked in the description below, and I have a ton of free tutorials there, a free course, Learn How to Paint Watercolour in 7 days, and if you want to go more in depth and learn a whole lot more about this beautiful art form, I have some paid courses too. As a final touch, I'm going to suggest some detail on the island by lifting out some highlights very carefully, just with the edge of a flat brush that's barely damp. I'm going to do it very carefully and slowly and wipe my brush off on a piece of tissue, because if it's too damp it will spoil the effect and lift too much out. And one final thing, I want to get the effect of the sun just passing behind the hills in the distance. So I'm going to take a cotton bud. Again, it just wants to be a bit damp, not too wet. And I'm just going to start lifting out a circular shape with that cotton bud, just to give the effect of the sun going behind those hills there. Okay, let's call this one done. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you found it useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon.